Let's get one thing straight. Rap over the past decade would be nowhere near where it is today had it not been for the formation of one of the most well-rounded labels of all time, Top Dawg Entertainment, acronymed TDE. As of 2020, each of its initial artists have a bulk of work under their belt, and even generalized as a label, TDE has the credit of releasing monumental projects like Schoolboy Q's Blank Face LP and Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly that would become iconic albums even outside of the realm of hip-hop. They essentially reinstated the idea of well-crafted bodies of work as well as having multiple talents signed to a single label. But TDE wouldn't end up going the same route as previous collectives. I mean, after all, how could they, considering no artist was well established at the start of 2011? What they were able to prove is that you don't need superstars right out of the gate, as long as there's potential that has yet to be tapped into. A decade later, we've seen an evolution of these rappers over the course of their careers and growth as human beings. And now, in 2020, it's safe to say that TDE needs reinvention, because for the past few years, the label has been on a decline. To understand how and why this has been occurring, we need to look back at how Top Dawg Entertainment came to be. Though not gaining mass notoriety until the early 2010s, the label was founded in 2004 by CEO Anthony Top Dawg Tiffith, along with side co-presidents Dave Free and Punch in Carson, California. But notice I said mass notoriety. Initial acts Kendrick Lamar and J-Rock were starting to build buzz for Anthony and his label, but buzz that would only grow with the continued grind of the artists and addition of new and talented acts, Ab-Soul in 2007 and Schoolboy Q in 2009. Top giving the artists creative freedom led to 4 MCs with diverse personalities that shine through their tapes. Not one artist, save for maybe J-Rock and Schoolboy, was like the other, drawing in an audience that was spreading outside of the Golden State. With these 4 rap titans on a single label, it was inevitable that there would be a slew of collaborations, the most exciting being when all would appear on a track under the group moniker Black Hippie.
Black Hippie. Schoolboy Q, Black Hippie. Kendrick Lamar, Black Hippie. Black Hippie. Live from the House of Pain. Yeah.
Only seen at selective times during the label's run up until today, the appearance of every member on a single track was proof of their raw chemistry. Raw chemistry that would propel TDE into the 2010s, full of ambition.
Now take a picture. Now let me be.
TDE exploded in 2011. Each of the 4 rappers released their debut projects to critical acclaim, critics and fans praising their diversity and ability to craft projects that were engaging from start to finish. This moment is very important, because by the end of 2011, the Black Hippie members had each tasted a lick of success, and they wanted more. Despite the pressure of rap fans' ears all tuning into the label, they'd pretty much make the next few years their bitch. Each of us has our own opinion on how good we perceive music to be, but just for reference, let's compare Pitchfork's score of the TDE releases for these years. Schoolboy Q kicked off 2012 with Habits and Contradictions, receiving an 8.4 and Best New Music, and in 2014 with Oxymoron, receiving a 7.8. Proceeding in May of 2012, Ab-Soul's Control System would receive an 8.1, just narrowly missing the Best New Music title, and his follow-up These Days would only drop slightly at a score of 7.7. Now, I know there are gripes to be had with the projects, mostly singling out These Days, but what these consistent scores reflect are artists pushing their craft and becoming outliers in a very crowded landscape. However, what very may have been the crowning jewel of TDE came from Kendrick Lamar. October of 2012 would bring us Kendrick Lamar's notorious Good Kid, Mad City, an album many of us see as essential to hip-hop and being honored with a 9.5 on Pitchfork and Best New Music. 1,000,001 stories can be told about this album. I mean, about its cultural impact, its elevation of Kendrick as an artist, and even its snub of Best Rap Album at the 2014 Grammys to Macklemore. But I mean, to focus on a single thing, it should be that TDE was officially a household name. After 2012, you couldn't speak of the current rap landscape without talking about Black Hippie. Yet, people wondered by 2015, what was next for the label? Assets needed to increase also. The label couldn't rely on only 4 artists for its whole run. So Top made the decision in 2013 to tag on 2 new members, Tennessee poet Isaiah Rashad and Missouri crooner SZA. Top would later go on to sign an artist a year starting in 2016, something that'll be more relevant later. 2015 into 2016 TDE releases would be more scarce, but make up for this in being full-blown events upon arrival. J-Rock's long-awaited second studio album was finally released, despite some drama, and Schoolboy Q would release his fourth studio project, Teased, by a lean into a full ominous groovy gangster persona. Both projects saw the artists pushing outside their comfort zones, but still emulating their original cadence, though neither would do as well as TDE's first release in 2015, To Pimp a Butterfly.
Do you hear that shit? Do you fucking hear that shit? That's an artist. You just witnessed an artist at work.
Yeah, okay, we all love this album. It doesn't just get praised for nothing. Some adore Kendrick's fusion of jazz and funk to create an atmosphere of political and self-confrontation, while others groan at hearing an artist straying too far from what made him a catch in the eye of the public. Kendrick didn't care though. He knew he had a masterpiece inside of him and wanted to use his momentum from Good Kid Mad City to unleash his ultimate capabilities. To Pimp a Butterfly is loved not only for being a stunning standalone piece, but because an artist was completely unfazed from his initial success, that someone could call out nearly the entire industry and still deliver on his promise to release not good, but just great material. But, no bias, trust me, anyways, I'm getting carried away. Point is, TDE was madly respected by the end of 2016. Even new signee Isaiah was pulling his weight with the Sun's Tirade dropping earlier that year, proving the label had yet another lyrical heavyweight under their belt. Rappers of every stature were aware of the crew, some that even collaborated with them. The run TDE had during the 2010s up until now had projects of varying sounds, each offering a lens into the artist's life at the current time. Best of all, each project was identifiable by a theme and motive behind the creative process. But it's after 2016, ladies and gentlemen, that I believe TDE has been failing to match previous standards set forth by none other than themselves. As of 2020, TDE has accumulated 11 artists, yet when we think of TDE, it's easy to identify Black Hippie, while the more current signees become harder to name or even remember. The label's foundation was built off the versatility and popularity of its initial artists, as they became the pillars keeping TDE structurally sound. After 2016, some of the stars had a fall from grace. Ab-Soul was the last in 2016 to put out a record, one that was forgotten shortly after due to the audiences being lost by the scatterbrained philosophies of the album and its structure overall. Some, like myself, enjoy the project for Ab-Soul at least delivering on his cadence and wordplay, but admittedly, I would rather still hear his past material like Control System. Soul already had listeners on the fence with his last release, so his follow-up being even more of a head-scratcher only made more people put him on the back burner. Meanwhile, earlier that same year, J-Rock would endure a motorcycle accident that would leave him with a broken leg and severely cracked pelvis.
Feel me? I was on my bike. You know, accidents happen. That's all I gotta say. You feel me? Yeah, you know, by the God's grace, you feel me? He protected me the whole way. You feel me? Real talk.
Despite playing it cool, he would later reveal his worries of the accident being fatal on the track Redemption. Though eventually finding his peace, Jay still had to deal with the trauma of his own mistakes. But of all the tragedies to strike Black Hippie, the worst came in the form of losing a friend. Mac Miller was a close associate of TDE, working with Soul and Q on more than multiple occasions. His passing away on September 7th, 2018, invoked sadness around the world, and we knew full well artists that actually knew him would be hurting 10 times harder. This is nowhere near me blaming Mac for anything, rather pointing out a significant moment of change, especially from Q, who even further delayed his album after scrapping and redoing it several times prior. Through all of this happening, and through all of the misfortune that the TDE crew was facing, there's still the talk about the role of Kendrick. You see, Kendrick was crafting in 2016 a different approach to his music, per usual, but this time around, the sound he was going for was going to be the most accessible it's ever been. Considering the market had shifted towards singles and streams, Kendrick planned to use this to his advantage, and thus, we have Damn, a complete 180 of To Pimp a Butterfly that brought his lyrics and politics to the front doorstep of even the most reserved of hip-hop listeners. It was a transition that would inspire his new energy, such as on his assembled Black Panther soundtrack where he worked with Travis Scott for the unconventional Big Shot, and yes, I still count it even though it's only on a soundtrack. But really, what does all this matter? Just because Damn was a commercial album doesn't mean it can't be good, right? Well, yeah, that is right, and I quite enjoy Damn myself. Good or bad isn't what's to be examined, it's the comfortability of Kendrick to integrate modern styles that in a way sacrifice creativity. The creation of both J-Rock's Redemption and Q's Crash Talk were made under two conditions, one being the oversee of Kendrick in the creative process, and the other being with high emotions in mind. Jay painted his picture of the grateful triumphant, while Q guided us through his path to inner peace, and both were crafted with the ingredient of accessibility through Kendrick's care. The sounds they've ended up on are therapeutic, but ones they've easily conquered before. making for entertaining but unsatisfying listens. Kendrick wasn't hindering their careers, he's offering a play from his book to appeal to the masses and retain relevance. Using the creation of an album as therapy was only natural, considering the resources they had at hand. The creative freedom granted by Top, combined with additional artists signed to fill output gaps, gave Black Hippie the ability to take their time with projects, like Soul, who hasn't even dropped since 2016. I'm okay. It's disheartening to see, but the Black Hippie crew has become too comfortable. The unfortunate thing about change is that you can never go back, so we can't expect our favorite artists to revert back to their old selves for an album or two. It's just not realistic. It's a slump in the TDE timeline, no doubt, but one in which they can recover. Promise can be found from the idea that these accessible albums are placeholders, giving the fans decent material until the next strive for greatness. I mean, if Kendrick is releasing a whole rock album, then fuck, these guys could venture into any direction. A sharp change in sound by him might be what the whole label needs to inspire a new era, or, at least get Soul and Isaiah out of their caves. I know, creative freedom should be maximized at all costs, but it comes down to the artist as to how that freedom is used. I hope the label gets back on track releasing consistent and quality material, and I hope these projects really are placeholders. But at the end of the day, I just hope to hear MCs more inspired and more daring to be outstanding again. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way until the end of the video. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the whole point is just to create discussion. I want to hear your guys' opinion on the subject that I was talking about. Do you think TDE has also been on a decline? Do you enjoy Crash Talk? Do you enjoy Redemption? I want to hear all of it. Feel free to voice your opinion. Like I said, the whole point is just to talk about it. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below if you think I'm totally off base or you agree with me at least a little bit, or if you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter and maybe bring it up on there, I wouldn't mind discussing it there either. I will link those in the description box below, and besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.